Good afternoon, Mark Scheifmeyer, the city hearing examiner. I've been asked to convene a public hearing for purposes of reviewing a preliminary plat application submitted by Gary Parr for what is referred to as the Parr preliminary plat. It bears the city's plat number PL-P plat 21-0001. It's a request to establish an 8 single-family residential units subdivision on 5.26 acres located roughly at the intersection of Counterwood Boulevard and 120th Street. In advance of today's hearing, I received the staff report authored by Mr. Hammer as present today, together with all of the materials associated with that staff report. Reviewed all those materials in advance of today's hearing, and I'm familiar with the application. I also received some supplemental materials today in reference to a second public works variance, as well as some supplemental correspondence from state agencies. And perhaps Mr. Hammer can explain more fully as underway. Again, I have reviewed those supplemental materials as well. Sorry, those are both from, I think, DHAP, DAHP, and ecology regarding aspects of the staff report. So for those of you who have not been a party to a hearing of this nature, it's relatively straightforward. It has 3 components. The first is to hear from city staff, presumably Mr. Hammer, to explain more fully the nature of the hearing, what's taking place today, and the staff's recommendations and any proposed conditions, followed then by an opportunity for the applicant to respond to that city presentation by adding to, subtracting from the things that the city staff has recommended, and then followed by an opportunity for the public to be heard. And it's difficult to determine at this point whether members of the public who wish to be heard on this. I'm not sensing any. Relatively little public comment in advance of today's hearing, but in the event there is, those who wish to be heard will be first sworn and then allowed to speak what they wish. So let's get underway. I'm sensing that we're having some bandwidth issues. Everyone's frozen on my screen, and I'm not sure if I'm being heard well. Let's turn to Mr. Hammer. Mr. Hammer, do we seem to be recording well?
From our end, it appears so.
Great. Let's have you sworn and we'll have you get underway. So, Mr. Hammer, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Then go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Scheibmeyer, and good afternoon, everyone. We are here to discuss the Parr preliminary plat, which is encompassed in file numbers PLAT 21-0001, PLDR 21-0171, PLWET 21-0002, PLALP 22-0003, and PLSEPA 21-0006. The subject parcel is located at Pierce County Assessor's parcel number 01-222-54065. An approximate address located off 120th Street along Canterwood Boulevard, and is owned by Gary Parr, and the applicant is CES Northwest Incorporated. The applicant proposes to divide an existing vacant 5.26 acre parcel into 8 lots for single-family residential development. The subdivision will also include a public access road, 1 storm tract, 2 access tracts, and 2 open space tracts to accommodate perimeter landscaping and the buffer associated with an on-site type 4 stream. The subject site is located on the east side of Canterwood Boulevard, approximately 800 feet south of the intersection between Canterwood and 122nd Street. It's within the R1 single-family residential zoning district and is neighbored to the north and east by unincorporated King County, to the west by R2 medium density residential, and PCD BP, Planned Community Development Business Park District, to the south. The site is currently vacant and covered with a moderate to dense mixture of conifer and deciduous trees, along with an understory consisting of various native species and scattered invasives. The site slopes up sharply from Canada Road Boulevard before plateauing through the midpoint of the site and then sloping downward towards the Type 4 stream. Soundview Consultants has provided a wetland habitat assessment following a site investigation and confirmed the presence of the stream on the eastern portion of the site. The report is included as Exhibit F. And it noted the stream met the characteristics to be classified as a Type 4 non-fish bearing stream and includes a 25-foot buffer and 15-foot structure setback. The report was reviewed by the city's third-party critical area consultant, Greddy Associates, who concluded that the report is compliant with Gig Harbor Municipal Code Chapter 18.08. These findings were reported through a technical memorandum that is being included as Exhibit E. Site stormwater is going to be routed to a detention vault, which is shown on Exhibit B, the project plans. It's located at the south portion of the development area and is detailed in the preliminary drainage control plan that's been included as Exhibit N. The staff report incorrectly noted this was an infiltration vault. That was actually part of an initial proposal that was later revised when it was determined the soils would not support infiltration. The applicant has proposed alternatives to two specific requirements of the design manual, 17.99160A, that's the enhancement corridor standards, requiring retention of significant trees within the enhancement corridor. And then secondly, 17.99240 for unbalanced cut and fill as a result of excess cut necessary to connect the site to Canada Road Boulevard. The design review board has provided a recommendation to the hearing examiner to approve this proposed design. That recommendation is provided as Exhibit D. And included in that recommendation, the design review board requested modifications to the existing retaining wall that's located south of the access. So they requested changes to that retaining wall as well as the topography in the area to lower it, essentially to kind of reduce the impact of that wall. And that's shown on the proposed plans, Exhibit B. And they also made a recommendation for replanting in the area to be consistent with the proposed plantings to the north of that access. The applicant has prepared an alternative landscaping plan. Gig Harbor Municipal Code 1778-060B1 requires retention of all significant trees within the perimeter landscape area. That's 25 feet on the perimeter of the site. The landscape plan has been provided as Exhibit C. It shows 42 significant trees proposed for removal within the enhancement corridor at the western side of the property to allow for access to the site and grading. And another 7 are proposed along the northern boundary of the site for a total of 49. The applicant has proposed 143 replacement trees, all of which species from the director's preferred species list, with approximately 20% of each species exceeding the size required by code. Additionally, the arborist report noted pockets of laminated root rot within the enhancement corridor area at the west. So the applicant has selected a variety of species which are resistant to root rot to replace existing Douglas fir that are susceptible to it. 2 public works variances have been granted as part of this project. EN 220023 included as Exhibit T, variance from the 2018 City of Gig Harbor Public Works Standards, detail 2-03 for roadway section, minor arterial residential, to allow the elimination of a 12-foot turn pocket from the minor arterial residential road from which the site gains access. And the turn was determined to not be warranted based on the traffic impact assessment, which has been included as Exhibit O. The second variance, EN 220066, was initially omitted from the staff report, and that was an error by me. It's one of the documents that was submitted earlier today, and that's included as Exhibit EE. The applicant requested a variance from the Public Works Standards section 2B.090 to allow usage of a cul-de-sac. And that standard notes cul-de-sacs may be allowed by variance with the approval of the city engineer where geographical, topographic, or environmental conditions preclude connection. And when these connections preclude roadway connections, continuous non-vehicular connections should still be attempted. And the city engineer provided a decision that the variance request satisfied all criteria for approval. All proper noticing was included for this application and public hearing. Staff received 4 comments for the notice of application, and those comments are included as exhibits J through M. So to summarize, exhibit J was provided by Department of Ecology and included comments regarding solid waste management, toxics cleanup, and water quality. Exhibit K is a comment from the Squaxin Island Tribe of Indians stating that the Squaxin Tribe of Indians would concur with recommendations from the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservations, DAHP, should any recommendations be provided to the city. And keep in mind, this was at the time of notice of application. No recommendations were provided related to the proposal at the time of staff report. Exhibit L, the Puyallup tribe commented to request a cultural resource study due to the proximity of the project location to a documented village site and proximity to McCormick Creek. And lastly, Exhibit M from John Krozik, a resident, provided comments regarding transportation related concerns. Staff issued a determination of non-significance on July 13th. City received 2 comments following the publishing of the staff report. One of them in response to the DNS. And the comment was, has been included as Exhibit FF. Again, one of the ones that was sent earlier today. And that was provided by Department of Ecology and noted that their prior comments submitted following the notice of application still apply. And the other comment added this morning was in response to the notice of public hearing. And that was from the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservations, Exhibit GG. So they had requested the cultural resources assessment that was done in response to the Puyallup tribe's comment. And so these comments were in response to that. They just noted that they would recommend a standard inadvertent discovery plan that is followed during all grand disturbing activities. So considering the analysis I provided here and with the staff report and exhibits, staff concludes that the proposed preliminary plat is consistent with the comprehensive plan, titles of the Gig Harbor Municipal Code related to subdivisions, zoning, and environment, and staff recommends approval with conditions of the prior preliminary plat. And this concludes my brief of the project, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Not too many, Mr. Hammer, but a couple. Still learning some of the city's system. And so help me with the variances proposed by DRB versus those involving Public Works. How do the two compare and contrast, and especially with respect to what my role is with either or both?
Yeah, so the Public Works variances have already been issued by the city engineer. So those are complete. Those are just effectively as part of this for your reference as an exhibit. So no decision on those is required by you. For the design review board, it's not necessarily a variance they're looking at, but an alternative proposed by the applicant. And they're just reviewing it to effectively determine that it is a superior alternative to whatever would have resulted if the applicant were to strictly apply the design manual on the site. So it provides for a little flexibility for applicants in that manner.
So, and they in the report exhibit T, they find that the recommended trying to get my terminology again correct. Um, Well, I'm sorry, I am confused. I was looking at the wrong one. I was
Mr.
looking
Hearing
at,
Examiner, I believe the city engineer had some input to help.
okay, I just wanted to set the record. I was looking at the Public Works report, not the DRB.
Mhm.
Okay. Too many reports, so I'll turn to the city engineer, Mr. Hulse. Let's have you sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Help me out.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Mr. Hammer stated. So public works variances are governed by section 1.035 of our current public works standards. And as far as final decision, you could read about that in 1.035D. And it has a couple paragraphs that speak to that.
Okay, thank you. So let me give me a second to reposition. So I'm sorry, Mr. Hammer, with respect to the DRB recommendations, are they melted into simply the city's proposed conditions? Or do they
Yeah,
require?
sorry. So effectively, the DRB makes a recommendation to the director for a decision, but in the case of a hearing examiner decision, it's the examiner who can make the approval on it. So it's just a recommendation.
Okay, but it's not your proposed conditions. Do they incorporate those recommendations?
I don't believe they were mentioned. They were mentioned in the conclusions, but let me double
Right.
check. Apologize, I didn't have that up.
It says a recommendation to approve the proposed grading plan, including the removal of significant trees, etc. All is found in Exhibit D. And so what is the preferred means of my doing so? Is that, again, your conditions won't have done so. I'll need to simply, as I did in my last preliminary plat approval, just acknowledge those that are recommended and approve them.
Correct.
Okay. All right. The one gentleman has questioned the safety of an access off directly onto Canterwood, and has suggested that consideration be given to look into a means of access somehow off 120th. Is there any possibility for reducing the number of entrances off of Canterwood through this area?
I think I'm going to defer to city engineer on this one, if I can.
Yeah, and I can definitely take that one. So yeah, this particular access way onto Canterwood Boulevard meets our access spacing requirements, governed by our public works standards, and the applicant's engineer did a site distance analysis, looking both directions, leaving the site to make sure that the site distance triangle and site distance was available for the project.
Okay. And do we have any concerns over kind of cumulative impact issues regarding traffic that as we see a number of relatively smaller subdivisions side by side, that we had this cumulative situation of multiple curb cuts on Counterwood, that while no one particular one is problematic, several become so. Any concerns of that nature, Mr. Holst?
No, we do not. And the way that we manage that as a city is with our concurrency model. So this development and every development before it moves through the land use determination has to meet our code for concurrency management, which is chapter 1910 of our municipal code. And so this particular plat proposed 8 p.m. peak hour trips. We take a deposit from the consultant. We take those trips. We have another traffic consultant that maintains our transportation network model for us. So we essentially take those 8 trips. Our consulting firm that manages our model runs those through the model. It looks at every intersection in the city as a result of this project out into the concurrency model year, and there was no failures as a result of this project.
Okay, and as you foretell additional developments in the area, you're not seeing any progression of development such that this and perhaps others of a like nature is going to become problematic?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you. Those are the questions I have of staff. So I'll turn then to the applicant. Would that be through Mr. Deaver? Let's have you unmuted, Mr. Deaver. There you go. Will you be the applicant spokesperson today?
Yes, I will.
Okay, let's have you sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You've heard both what Mr. Hammer has said and Mr. Holst has said. This is the applicant's opportunity to expand on those points, to make its own points, to anticipate issues that may be important to members of the public. Whatever you would like to speak to, this is your opportunity.
Sure. First thing, I would like to just point out that the applicant and the owner name, I think those just got swapped on the staff report. It was Gary Parr was the original owner. Then our client, Ivory LLC, ended up closing on that property during the process of this. So I want to make sure that and that's listed on our final plat map. It's, if you would like to have that for the record, or maybe you already have it. So I don't want to be redundant here, but it's Ivory LLC, and the address is 33400 8th Avenue South, Suite 230, Federal Way, Washington 98003. That would be the current owner.
Great, thank you.
CES, my name would be the agent / applicant for this project.
Understood. Thanks.
Okay, so yeah, I'll expand a little bit. I'll give a little rundown. Some of this might be somewhat redundant, but I think it's important to reiterate this, at least for me, to make sure that it gets read into the record. So the site, again, I'm Craig Deaver, principal at CES, and I appreciate you taking the time and staff time to work with us. And my team, which is Dan Smith, my senior project manager, Don Babineau, one of our senior land planners here, and then my consultant team, which is Geo Resources for geotechnical support, Soundview Consultants for wetlands, and then we had an arborist, and I'm sorry, the name escapes me, which I believe was wrapped in with Soundview Consultants. So the project description is, it's a 5.26 acre site, which after we get done subtracting the roads, critical areas, and everything else, we're left with about approximately 4.19 acres of net developable area, which leaves us approximately 1.91 dwelling units per acre, which is significantly less than the 4 units per acre maximum that's allowed. The project proposes 4 tracks, one shared access track, 1 storm track, and 2 open space tracks for storm and trees. The proposed public right-of-way is approximately 13,000 square feet or 0.3 acres, which will be dedicated as a public road. I think and the reason I want to mention this, I think there might be a couple references to private roads throughout the staff report. I want to be very clear that these are proposed as public for matters of this hearing and hopefully your approval. We are doing frontage improvements with half street improvements, bike lane, curb, gutter, planter and sidewalk. The DRB, we went through the DRB process where they picked, well, we have made a proposal, they made some counter proposals during the DRB plan, and I think we fell onto a nice happy medium with some tiered walls and trying to reduce the frontage, wall frontages while providing some enhanced landscaping. And then also, as part of that process, we supplied a public works variances, as was earlier discussed, to eliminate the left turn lane and also to allow for the cul-de-sac, public cul-de-sac for the access to the site. Some of the design review board conditions were trees, landscape, planting, enhancement quarter based on the alternative landscape plan, which I know you have as an exhibit. We worked very diligently with city staff, our arborist, our landscape architect, and also our in-house engineering staff to ensure that we met the DRB conditions. Sewer for the site is being connected to an existing sewer stub that was provided as part of the sewer main extension. And that sewer stub is just south of our site entrance, so it will not be, portions of it will not be in the public right of way. Water, we're connecting to a existing 12-inch main at the southwest corner of the site. And of course, we'll be extending that water main along the length of our project frontage to our plat entrance. As mentioned previously, we are proposing a detention vault. There was some mention of infiltration, and the last submittal that we had some decent soils in the area, and we've kind of ruled it out based on slopes and the ability to detain the water on site. So that is the preferred method for handling the stormwater runoff of this site. We did provide. We posted the site with the public notice board on July 18th, 2023. As you've heard, city staff, in particular, Jeremy Hammer, is recommending approval of the preliminary plat with staff and DRB conditions. We are in general agreement with staff report regarding planning and public works requirements, setback, lot size, density, tree retention, storm erosion control, etc. However, our review of the staff report found a couple inconsistencies, some of which I've met, but I'll try and summarize these on a page by page basis here. And I think if staff could concur with this, maybe after I get done with my presentation, I would appreciate it. Staff analysis, first is on page 7, goal 2.5. Staff indicates using infiltration vault trenches to mitigate runoff. And so the drainage control plan is to use a detention vault for flow control since the soils do not support. The drainage control plan and exhibit N proposes a detention vault. So there was a minor inconsistency there. I just would like to have that clarified. Let me
slow you down just.
Oh, sure. Sorry, I tend to go fast because I know a little bit of this is redundant.
Right. And nonetheless, I want to be sure that when we get to anything that seems to be more substantive, that I'm ready for your comment.
Sure.
So yes, the first one has been noted by city staff. So your next one is what?
Page 8, street and roads. It indicates there was only one variance requested related to roads for the modified road section of Canterwood. We actually requested, as you know, 2 variances.
Yes.
The city approved the variance, and we requested use a cul-de-sac for the pros access and approved a variance to modify the road frontage road section on Canterwood to eliminate the standard left turn lane.
Okay.
Third point, engineering condition 9H indicates a private road is proposed.
And what pages?
I didn't write it for page. Do we have that page? I apologize, I don't have it. It's condition 9H.
Of the proposed conditions?
Yes. I'm sorry, I don't have the page. I didn't write that one down. And of course, the public we're providing a public road with 2 private access tracks for the lots. Page 22 of 24.
Oh, okay, where it says private, it should say public.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
And that is it with regards to the staff report corrections. So in conclusion, we ask that you approve the preliminary plat based on the city staff recommendations, taking into consideration the corrections I've indicated. We believe the preliminary plat development permit meets the city requirements, codes, and goals. Do you have any questions of me at this time?
a couple again. So I'm trying to visualize the layout a little bit more, and in terms of street side improvements to what will be a public road. So what will we see in the way of street improvements such as curbs, gutters, sidewalks, street trees, and lighting? What will we find along that brief street and its cul-de-sac?
That is on page 319 of our development plans, and it will have curb, gutter, sidewalk, and with site lighting.
Okay. And the landscaping, it's not part of that, but rather the surrounding landscaping then?
That is correct. Yes, the
Okay.
sidewalk will be adjoining the curb and gutter.
Okay, it'll be a common curb gutter sidewalk.
Right.
The landscaping to the west along the buffer with Counterwood, what would I best understand it? Describe that more fully for me.
It's quite extensive, actually. I mean, we're going to be removing a portion of the wall and tearing that wall and regrading it, so the mound is more or less taken down. And then there will be significant landscape enhancements with trees, shrubbery, etc. Sheet is in. The idea behind that at the DRB is that they didn't want to see a big wall along there. And so that's kind of how we've kind of come up with this tiered wall approach, and then also reduced, in fact, the wall by regrading that higher area or hump, if you will, out. And so we can now have a nice gentle landscape with a tiered wall section adjacent to the frontage sidewalk.
Okay, thank you. And then again, trying to get a better visual image, the detention vault lying between lots 3, that'd be lots, can't.
It's between
That's
lots
a-
7 and 8 and that tract A storm access.
Yeah, to the west of 7 and 8 and east of is that 8?
Yes,
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. To the east is lot 6 and 7, small print on my version. To the west is lot 8. So it lies between those 3 lots. And how does it lie between them? How would you describe its location?
it's going to be an underground storm vault that's built of concrete. It will likely be a cast in place vault with a precast lid. It'll be a series of looks like we're proposing at this time 4 chambers, but it could decrease or be enhanced depending on our structural calculations once we do the final design on it.
Okay, all right. And then finally, the buffer to the north. What might that look like?
So there's going to be there's 25-foot landscape buffer, and then there will be a solid board fence along the back of lots 1, 2, and 3 at the 25-foot landscape line. Landscape buffer area.
Okay,
And there was something that was stated earlier that there's a 25-foot perimeter landscape buffer. That is essentially correct, except to the south where we abut the hospital or Franciscan Health System as it's labeled on the map, that we have a 40-foot landscape because of the dissimilar zones.
A question I should have asked Mr. Hammer, but if you feel comfortable answering it, fine. I take it in the R1 zone, there is no minimum number of units required.
Yeah, not to my knowledge, there's not.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
no minimum density.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hammer. Okay, I think that answers my questions, Mr. Deaver. Thank you very much. Are you the presentation for the applicant?
Yes, I believe so. One of the owner's reps is on this. I'm not sure she would like to speak, but if she would, feel free.
Would that be Ms. Cavalli then?
That is me, and I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That completes then the applicant's presentation. We've heard now from both the city as well as the applicant, which turns us then to the public hearing portion of today's hearing. And I'm not certain if we have members of the public who are present wishing to be heard, but if we are, this is the opportunity. So Ms. Thomas, have you gotten an indication of whether there are members of the public present, and if so, if they wish to be heard?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, there is one member of the public present. If they wish to be heard, if they could push *9 on your phone or raise your hand in the window, we can allow them to talk.
Who would that be, Ms. Thomas?
It looks like Tony Derringer.
Okay. Are you receiving recognition from Mr. Derringer?
I am not.
Okay, so let me just ask, if Mr. Derringer, I assume that's a Mr. Or anyone else who may be wanting to be heard with respect to this application, this is your opportunity. So if you do wish to be heard, please let staff know. And again, Ms. Thomas, did you receive any kind of a response?
I did not.
Okay. I'll note that there have been no public comments today, and there has been very limited public comment throughout this entire application. It's a straightforward one. It is without public opposition or significant public comment. There are naturally some concerns about growing traffic along Canterwood, but city staff has spoken to those ably enough. The other aspects of the application are straightforward. Nothing very surprising at all about this one. It's been well thought out, and staff has done a good analysis of the application and properly conditioned it. So I don't have anything to add to the proposed conditions, nor any reason to deny the application. I'm going to go ahead and approve the preliminary plat, as well as those things recommended by the DRB. As part of that decision, I'm going to do so subject to the conditions that have been recommended by staff. I'm not adding to those conditions. However, I will note the scrivener's errors and make any necessary correction to properly reflect public roads or other things and detention vaults, etc., making sure that the correct things are noted, as well as the correct owner. But I will do all that within a set of findings, conclusions, and a final plat approval within what I hope to be a very short period of time. And in fact, it's my intention to devote this afternoon toward getting much of that accomplished. And so I will get work underway. Please keep in mind that although I have orally approved the application today, that oral approval doesn't carry much. It's not until I reduce it to writing is it effective, and can again be the key that opens other doors. I recognize the importance of that written decision and how it can delay things, and so I will attempt to reach that written decision as quickly as I can and get that back to the city. Are there any last questions of anybody present today? I'm not getting any, and so I want to thank everybody for your presence and for your testimony. With that, we're adjourned. Thank you.